If I was trustee of a children's home and that was the only asset of the children's home and it was my responsibility simply to get the best economic result for the children's home, I would have had to sell it to them.
Exactly. Since I last talked to you, you have, in concert with other members of the board, have chosen the successor?
Well, what we have, Charlie, is we have 3 that could do it. And every meeting of the board, we don't have very many meetings, but every meeting of the board, that's the subject. And the question is, if something happens to me that night, who do they put in charge? So they always go away knowing what they would do the next day. Now, there may be a pool of 3, but we have settled on 1 at any time. And so if something happened to me tonight, tomorrow morning, the board of directors of Berkshire would convene, and they would know exactly who they were going to put in charge.
You will run Berkshire as long as
I keep my marbles.
And you have somebody that'll come to tell you that you don't have them if necessary.
Well, yes, I've assigned that job to my children. I tell them they better all 3 come in together, because if just one comes, I'm cutting them out of the will.
You have said that you want to keep, if you could find $30 billion in acquisitions, you're prepared to do that.
Yeah,
and you want to just keep in reserve $10 billion.
About $10 billion, yeah.
Now, why that breakup? Well, why that?
Well, I think that a company that writes the catastrophe insurance and all of that sort of thing that we do should have plenty of liquidity. I mean, I want Berkshire always to be the Rock of Gibraltar. I mean, we've got 400,000 shareholders. We've got people who have workers' compensation claims against us that are quadriplegics or that are going to be getting a check from us 60 years from now. I've got no business fooling around with anything close to the solvency of Berkshire. So I will keep it way over on the safe side in every respect. And having a lot of money around, when you're in the insurance business like we are, I don't want to depend on letters of credit from banks or anything of the sort. Right. I don't want no too big to fail doctrine to bail us out. I really want us to be.
$10 billion is the right number.
Who knows what the right number is?
I understand. Yeah. Is the insurance business still as attractive to you today as it was from the beginning?
It's always been a business that sort of fits me. I mean, it gives you the money first, so the investment element is important. It also is a business where you're calculating odds on things, and
that's what you.
I guess I was probably destined to be a bookmaker, but my dad wouldn't let me.
You can calculate odds, but I mean, in the insurance business, is the increasing number of hurricanes, increasing number of the terrorism is a fact of life today.
I think so.
No matter how you can write a policy against all those things, I mean, does it make it any less? Is it?
Well, you have to get the right. You have to calculate the odds right. You got to get the right premium, and you never know whether you've gotten the right premium. I mean, over a lifetime whether overall you've gotten the right premiums for things, but you lose on some policies, and on other policies nothing happens, and so you don't know in any given day or week or month whether you're doing the right thing. But over time, you'll see whether your judgment has generally been right, and it's an interesting game.
Has the scandal affected it all?
No, I wouldn't say so.
All of the controversy about AGI and AIG.
No, we're doing, we do a lot of business. I mean, we've got a lot of different irons in the fire in the insurance business. I mean, we've got Geico, that's auto insurance. So we got a lot of different insurance businesses, no, it'll be the most important business at Berkshire throughout my lifetime, and probably a long time thereafter.
One thing you're doing is looking out to international companies. Is it for the first time?
No, I've always been interested, but we haven't been on the radar screen very much for entire businesses abroad. People did not think of us in Germany or the UK or, up till now Israel, if they had a business to sell. Now, I've always looked at international stocks, and we've always owned some international stocks.
Tell me how you see the economy today.
Well, the economy still is pretty good as we sit and talk today. People, they've taken lots of equity out of their, or they've extracted the equity that's appreciated in their houses big time in the last few years and all of that. But if you looked at the economy right today, you'd have to say it's pretty good. Now, we've got plenty of problems, but they are not manifesting themselves in business today.
Do you worry about inflation?
I worry some about inflation. Sure. Inflation is never gone. It's always in remission. and it's very easy.
Never dead, but always.
It's never dead. And it's something that is man-made and governments can create, and it oftentimes seems preferable to some alternative that's in the here and now. So you have to worry about, anytime you have governments, you have to worry about inflation.
And what about oil prices?
Well, I'm no good on oil prices. I mean, we're using 84 million barrels a day or so in the world of oil, and if something disrupts 3 or 4 million barrels a day of supply, like something happening in Iran, perhaps, the marginal barrel will go crazy.
We're on the edge.
Yeah. We've got less reserve capacity by far than we had 15 or 20 years ago.
When you think about the dollar,
I think the dollar over time will go down because I think we're following policies that in connection with trade that will cause the dollar. I don't know whether it'll be in 6 months, 6 years, 10 years, but the policies we're following as a country will cause the dollar, in my view, to decline.
Primarily our trade deficit.
Our trade deficit, right. And the flip side of our trade deficit is when we consume more than we produce, we have to trade the rest of the world something for that, and we give them our assets. We give them IOUs of the government. We give them dollars initially, and then they can convert those into other assets in this country. So we are trading away assets in order to overconsume.
As you said to me earlier, we're giving away pieces of the farm.
Yeah, we'll give away pieces of the farm. We want to eat. We want to consume more than we produce, and so we trade away a little bit of the farm. And we've got such a big farm. I mean, it's this is one prosperous country, but we can trade away. We don't see it day by day, but it adds up, and it has consequences.
More severe to you than the fiscal deficit.
That's true. Yeah, our national debt in relation to GDP is not extraordinary. I mean, we've had plenty of times in the past when it's been higher, particularly after World War II. And I don't like it when it keeps going up as a percentage of GDP. But a very rich country can stand more debt than a poorer country, and we can handle a lot more debt than in the past. Now, as that debt gets to be more and more owned by the rest of the world because of the trade deficit, it can cause problems down the line. But if you ask me whether I'd rather cure one or the other, I would rather largely cure the trade deficit.
You accept the argument that countries like China are locked into this dance with us because they need our market, so they're unlikely to dump American securities.
Oh, yeah. And incidentally, if they want to sell American securities, if they sell them to somebody in the United States, they get dollars with them. So they have to buy something else with the dollars. If they sell them to the French now have them, and the Chinese have got a claim on France, but they can't really get rid of them. They can change their asset preference about the American assets they own, but China can't get rid of American assets, basically, or the rest of the world can't, unless we start exporting as much to them as we're importing, and that day is coming.
But there are people who will suggest that there may be some catastrophic day, and we had that little tremor from the South Koreans about a year ago.
There could be a catastrophic day. I don't know the answer to that. I mean, but anytime you have huge imbalances in the world and you have lots of people on hair triggers trading currencies and stock and bonds, you have the potential for catastrophic days.
Back to the fiscal deficit and your sense of where we are. A lot of people look at the budget that they see today, and they look 10 years out, and they say with a baby boom generation coming in and Social Security and Medicare, that we are looking at a huge problem downstream, that either we got to raise taxes, cut spending, or change the age of the beneficiary.
Yeah, we have to change the promises. I mean, a lot of what you see coming down the road as really large looming problems revolve around promises. And we won't, in my view, ever change the promise on Social Security. We may change it when you get into Medicare or something of that sort.
No politician will suggest that.
No, they wouldn't. But this country has incredible resources. It has more resources per capita than it had 5 or 10 or 20 years ago. I mean, we're not going backwards economically as a nation, but we have made a lot of promises. And we could have a very rich family, Charlie, and our income could keep going up. But if I promised, the elder members of the family that they would, all live like multimillionaires, we could get in trouble.